So my talk is very different to what you've been hearing so far today. So my name is Lee Patricia Liao. I'm from the University of Sydney School of Medicine with Westmead Applied Research Centre. My supervisor is Associate Professor Sarah Zaman. She's an interventional cardiologist, and I'm a second year PhD student. So I'll be presenting my paper, which is under review, called The Association Between the Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension, which I'll refer to as the DASH diet, and risk of heart failure. And this is a UK Biobank study. Most of you don't know who I am. So my background, I've spent 20 years in the education sector. So I've been a senior chemistry biology teacher for the elite private schools that are listed there. I spent 4 years as an associate lecturer in the School of Medicine, so part of the pilot program where I helped students who came into the program from a non-science background. I'm also part of the Better Life Education program at Sydney Uni this year with Prof. Luigi Fontana. So as I mentioned, I'm in my second year of a PhD. My work centers around diet and heart failure. So I currently have a clinical trial, and it's a pilot one, looking at the ketogenic diet in heart failure patients. So I've got 2 publications, 3 under review, and another 2, I hope, will be coming. So an outline to my talk. So I'll tell you a little bit about heart failure, the burden of heart failure, current management, why the DASH diet, a little bit about the UK Biobank, and then moving on to my methods, results discussion, and future directions. So what is heart failure? It's a complex clinical condition, and it's characterized by the heart's inability to pump a sufficient amount of blood to meet the body's metabolic needs. So it's often secondary to some form of structural or functional abnormality. There are 2 main types. So we've got HFrEF, or heart failure with reduced ejection fraction. And by ejection fraction, I mean the percentage of blood that's pumped out of the heart each time it contracts. And if that's less than 40%, then those patients are characterized as HFrEF. So in my clinical trial, I've been working with HFrEF patients. Or if the EF is greater than 50%, then that's preserved ejection fraction, and there are subtypes in between. So it's a huge global health burden. 56 million people are affected around the world, and following diagnosis, there's a 60% reduction in life expectancy. So it is a big public health problem. More pertinent to my study, greater than 1 million people in the UK have been diagnosed with heart failure, and 5-year survival is actually less than 50%. So I'm going to be talking about dietary patterns. So the only non-pharmacological adjunct treatment recommended at the moment is salt restriction. And as many of you know, that it's because salt causes fluid overload, leading to hypertension, which is then a risk factor for heart failure. But the studies on salt restriction and heart failure incidents are actually conflicting. But there's a huge gap in evidence for dietary interventions. And I know it's in little writing, but I've been looking at the Mediterranean diet, today's the DASH diet, and then in my clinical trial, the ketogenic diet. So what is the DASH diet? It's one which is high in whole grains, vegetables, and fruits, low in sodium and red and processed meats. Obviously, there are other components as well, but these are what it tends to be well recognized for. So what we know so far is in a UK population, high adherence to a DASH diet seems to lower cardiovascular disease mortality. There have only been 2 large cohort studies looking at heart failure, and those are in Sweden and the USA, and they have both shown an inverse relationship. So this Splines curve here is from the Swedish study by Ibsen, and a higher DASH score, which I'll talk about later, correlates with high adherence. And so you can see the hazard ratio decreases to this higher score, meaning decreased incidence of heart failure. But other studies have actually been conflicting. And obviously there are variations with age, sex, and ethnicity as well. So the gap is that there have been no studies in large prospective cohorts like a UK Biobank population looking at the association between the DASH diet and incident heart failure. So I had two main aims. One was to determine the association between adherence to the DASH diet and incident heart failure. And the secondary outcome or aim was to look at whether there's an association between two of the heart failure risk factors. And these aren't the only two, but it's the two that we chose, hypertension and type 2 diabetes with incident heart failure. So the UK Biobank, if you're unfamiliar with it, is a large multi-centre prospective cohort. There are greater than 500,000 adults aged between 37 and 73 years. Recruitment occurred between 2006 to 2010, and when participants come to the centre, they undertake a self-reported questionnaire to ascertain their diet. They then do verbal interviews to get their medical history, socio-demographic information, followed by blood tests, urine samples, and body measurements. And they all provide are given written consent. So how did I carry this out? So my population, as I mentioned, the UK Biobank participants aged between 37 and 73 years. After removing all the exclusion criteria, we had 124,777 participants. We included anyone without heart failure at baseline, and if they've completed at least two 24-hour recalls, so specifically the Oxford WebQ 24-hour recalls, then they were included. And the reason it's more than two is that that's known to reflect a person's normal diet, since it's only a 24-hour recall. There was another exclusion criteria, which is that we removed anyone with implausible intake. So people taking over the 99th percentile of what women and men usually take in. My dietary assessment was the DASH score, which I mentioned before, and that was constructed by Fung. He put each of the components into five. So each component was given a score of 5 based on intake of their diet. Those components were then added together to give an overall score of 40, and that was considered as the DASH score. This was then characterized into quintiles. The endpoint was a composite of heart failure or heart failure-related death, and the secondary endpoint, hypertension and type 2 diabetes. So these covariates were chosen a priority based on associations with heart failure. So that was age, sex, gender, socioeconomic status, smoking, a BMI greater than 30, which was classified as obese, hypertension, and type 2 diabetes. My statistical analysis was all through RStudio, and I did a competing risk analysis where the competing risk was all-cause death. And I produced two models, one adjusting for age, sex, socioeconomic status, and smoking, and a second model with everything in model 1 plus those comorbidities I mentioned, so obesity, hypertension, and type 2 diabetes, because these might actually lie on the causal pathway and mediate part of the association between the DASH adherence and heart failure risk. So what did I find? There were, as I mentioned, 124,777 participants. 624 were diagnosed with heart failure at baseline and so removed. Mean age 56 and BMI 27. There were 56% females as well. When I compared the high adherence group, so that's quintile 5, to the low adherence group, you could see that at baseline there were already favorable characteristics of that high adherence group. So there were lower incidence of obesity, current smokers, they were less likely to consume alcohol daily and more likely to be university qualified. This population also had less history of hypertension and type 2 diabetes. More females were also in this category. So 64% of females were eating according to closer to the DASH diet than males were. When I looked at the food components and compared quintile 5 to the DASH recommendations, you could see that the intakes are low compared to what DASH recommends. Two things I want you to take note, which I'll talk about later, is the red and processed meat being particularly low and sodium being double. And before you get too excited, this value is wrong. You shouldn't be having 350 grams of sugar a day. It's less than 35 grams a day. Okay, so at mean follow-up time of 12 years, there was 2.5% that the event rate of heart failure was 2.5% and death about 0.5%. So we found that there was a 21% decrease in risk of heart failure and heart failure death, and that was for model 1. And there was a positive trend when we did a test for that too. So you can see that quintile 5 has a better decreased risk than quintile 2 and 3. And then when we adjusted for the comorbidities, the decrease in risk was still there, but it was 11%. And I'll talk about why that is a little bit later on. For the secondary outcome, there was a 9% decrease in risk and 10.3% of patients ended up with hypertension. Those in the high adherence group had an 18% decrease in risk of type 2 diabetes. Okay, so our findings support the role of the DASH diet pattern in the prevention of heart failure. There was no difference between males and females. And the data is consistent with the 2 large cohort studies. So the Swedish study that I mentioned and showed the graph of, they found a 15 to 17% risk reduction when all factors were adjusted for. And the REGARD study is the US study. They found a 21% reduction. Now, that one is quite high for a number of reasons. Their ethnic disposition was 40% Black participants, whereas the UK Biobank was 97% white participants. And there is an ethnicity predisposition related to heart failure. Also in this US study, their average age at baseline was 64 compared to 56 in the UK one. And again, there's a strong age-related increase in heart failure risk. So interestingly, after adjusting for the comorbidities of obesity, hypertension, and type 2 diabetes, we still saw the decrease in risk. And that supports the although that decrease was smaller, it was 11% versus 21 when it was only the socio-demographic factors. But it actually supports the fact that attenuation of these factors interrupts shared pathways, which can lead to progression to heart failure. And in fact, it's been shown that the DASH diet does decrease certain cardiac biomarkers, such as proBNP, which is a marker for heart failure. So this aligns with known pathways of oxidative stress and inflammation, which underlie the observed associations. So what we're saying is that the DASH diet confers protection indirectly through minimizing the risk factors, risk factor reduction, and directly through cardioprotective mechanisms. So with that table with the food components, remember that the intakes of quintile 5 were quite low compared to the DASH diet. That could be because the 2 reasons. The UK promotes what's called the Eat Well Guide, and it's much less prescriptive than the DASH. So the Eat Well Guide is shown here. Now, you can't see it that well, but it says things like eat more of vegetables without actually specifying how much to eat. The other thing is this UK Biobank cohort baseline is known to be quite healthy. So we're not actually seeing people with chronic illnesses with all these comorbidities. And so it might actually explain why they're not eating up to the DASH recommendations, because they haven't needed to. There was a low intake of fruits, vegetables, and nearly a 2-fold increase in salt. And a study has shown that with the UK Biobank cohort, there is a large intake of ultra-processed foods. So that's 46% of daily intake. And what I mean by ultra-processed foods are foods which contain ingredients you don't normally find in the home kitchen. So we're talking about your emulsifiers, preservatives, and additives. And so this might account for why their sodium intake is so high. Okay, so limitations, obviously, self-reported dietary intake has limited reliability because people do tend to under-report high energy density foods. Changes in diet over time was not reported. So diet was assessed right at the beginning, but not during the follow-up time. So we couldn't assess diet as a time-varying covariate. And that's quite important because diet does sometimes change. This cohort might not be as diverse as the general population. There are a large number of Caucasian participants, so ethnic diversity is lacking. Also, they are a healthy cohort. The small number of heart failure and heart failure death cases might also limit our statistical significance. So what I can conclude is that greater adherence to the DASH diet was associated with lowering risk of developing heart failure. And these associations persisted even after adjusting for comorbidities. And so it highlights potential public health impact of improving dietary quality in general, but more so supports stronger incorporation of the DASH diet into heart failure prevention guidelines. So thank you. My acknowledgements to my supervisor and my co-authors as well.